So today we're going to be discussing our visions for a sustainable future. And so the readings and the resources that we kind of engaged with this week helped us to look at visions of a sustainable future in a couple of different ways. One, reminding us of the context that we're in, but then two, reminding us that we do have the capacity to make change. Right? We do have the capacity. We can make change in our own unique ways. We can also impact broader change through community, through social movements, and we can imagine a more positive change, right? So sometimes it can be overwhelming to see all of the issues, to see the systems that are systems of injustice, systems that really don't bring us together, systems that aren't sustainable. But it also is empowering to have that knowledge when we're motivated to move forward. And so making that attempt, envisioning a positive future, putting our skills to use and putting them together so we can move forward. And that's kind of our goal and our discussion today with visions of sustainability. So, one of the articles really centered this radical imagination where you allow yourself, or maybe more than one of the articles, honestly, you allow yourself, you give your community space to imagine a context, to imagine a more sustainable world without that barriers. Because when you can imagine that more sustainable world without that barriers, then you can backtrack and say, okay, well, how do we put in place this world? What are the specific barriers that we need to consider so that we can dismantle them and move forward, right? Sometimes it can be easy to focus on the barriers. It can be easy to focus on the traffic jam, right? Well, maybe let's focus on the destination and then we can reroute. Then we can think about how we can get there in different ways, right? And so this radical imagination piece is something that is part of what we just did, imagining better futures through experiences that we've already had. And I think it's really essential and important that we allow ourselves to have that positive energy, that positive imagination, always within these contexts where we are talking about wicked problems and wicked issues and very, very large systematic changes that need to be made. Um, I also want to not push back a little bit, maybe push back a little bit and add to that when we are making these radical kind of future imaginations that we're considering, that we don't do them as individuals, right? So it's not just me imagining a future, it's me imagining a future within context, right? And so thinking of ourselves not as one in a million, right? That can be overwhelming sometimes, right? It's just me within millions of issues or billions of folks all doing different things that may be unsustainable, but thinking of ourselves as one of a million and connecting and reconnecting as we're making those radical visions and imaginary kind of scenarios that allow us to create goals, we're also including context. We're including experts. And so this idea of experts and who are experts is something that will come up again and again whenever we're talking about moving forward and envisioning change, right? So oftentimes, when I say expert, what comes to mind? Oh, we love having cats in the class. No worries. This is a kid-friendly, cat-friendly, pet-friendly space. People with lots of experience and knowledge, okay? And sometimes our institutions kind of drive us towards thinking about folks with degrees from, specific types of institutions, but really broadening that a little bit, the way that Scotty put it. Folks with experience and knowledge, generational cultural knowledge as well. And that has to be part of the equation, connecting with diverse folks, diverse cultures, diverse pasts, experiences, so that we can move into the future. And one of the most just beautiful and amazing examples of this is these half moon structures that in some indigenous African cultures are called zai, and in some South Asian cultures are called jahan, but there are many names for them. Okay. And, or maybe I missaid that. Anyways, there are many names for them, but essentially they are simple community-based water catchment systems, right? And colonialism had wiped out some of these indigenous practices and ways of knowing, right? And then climate change and the impacts of climate change. And there are certain elders in the community that brought back some of these ways of knowing. And now you have whole countries coming back and implementing these in this is a picture from an African community called, so they call them Zai in this specific area, these water catchment systems that an individual person can dig in a day. It's just a couple meters wide and it's a series of just disconnected ditches and then one connected trench and then another connected trench that has rocks embedded in it, right? And so this can be dug into an arid environment. And that catches monsoon water that comes inconsistently over time. And when these are dug, compost is added and native seeds and trees. So there's usually one or two trees, seeds for one or two trees, and a number of other plants, including food crops, that are added into these half moons, right? And then over the years, the water from the monsoons, instead of just flowing over the eroded land, it's caught in these half moons, and then actually they have developed some of the richest and most biodiverse forests in some of these areas where the projects are ongoing, right? And so the technology needed for this is a shovel or an axe, right? So these are accessible traditional cultural ways of knowing and doing that allow us to make a significant amount of change, right? Instead of always having to tap into what can feel like really inaccessible or expensive technologies to make climate change or sustainability change more accessible, right? And so this is just one example, but there are many examples of ways of knowing that have allowed us over historical time to adapt to change in meaningful and accessible ways, and really reaching into true expert opinion and knowledge and cultural resources to understand and not exploit, right? And not appropriate, but understand and build community and network and make change. Okay. And so when we're talking about visions for a sustainable future, I want this lecture to allow us to access change at multiple levels, right? And this class, of course, right? Not for us to be overwhelmed about all of the change that needs to happen, but to think about how we can make some small individual changes, some small community changes, and maybe together make some larger societal changes and just think about how we can do that sustainably. Be patient, allow for change to happen naturally over time. But as if each of us do a couple of different actions at multiple different levels, we will come together and we will be a force of nature, right? And we will make change. And so that's how I've kind of organized our discussion today. In terms of individual actions, a lot of what we've been doing here is the knowledge forming, the connecting with folks and experts. Thankfully, in this digital age, we can do that beyond, just the one teacher that you have in front of you. Thankfully, because I'm not the expert on any of these things, really. I just have this, general understanding of sustainability, but there's so much practice and there's so many experts out there. And thankfully, we're able to connect with some of those folks. Really considering the production of knowledge and who experts are, as we had just named and mentioned, and going into the community and connecting with those folks. So we could add on here finding mentors, right? Learn, understand, find mentors. Actually, let's just add it right now. Okay, find mentors. Okay. And then considering positionality. Each of us has a series of identities. Some of them we've just inherited. They just landed on us when we landed here, right? But some of them we've actually engaged intentionally. And how can we take all of those different positionalities, all of those different privileges, and how can we combine them with our continued knowledge, seeking, learning, understanding, and make kind of a plan for where are our personal points of impact, right? And my personal points of impact are different from your personal points of impact. And that's the beauty of it, is the 18 folks on this call, all of us have different points of impact within the systems, and all of us together can make change. Each one of us, we might be kind of isolated, but all of us together, we can make change, and we can make change by pushing different points of impact. So that's one of my recommendations as we're moving kind of to the end of this class, and something that you are definitely doing as you're working through your sustainability model projects is thinking about what are your points of impact and consider that within your positionality. Okay. And then we want to really, as we have stressed throughout the course, we want to make sustainable change. These are overwhelming topics sometimes, and it can be easy to jump in full force and say, I'm going to do all the things all at once because that's the only way to make an impact. But the truth is, small, continuous change builds up over time. Whereas very large, unsustainable changes in our life, oftentimes we swing back from. Eventually, we have a hard time keeping up that momentum. So put yourself in a place for success where, as you consider what you've learned and are continuing to learn, and you consider your positionality and how you might continue to maneuver your positionality, how can your points of impact, or what are your points of impact, and what are the specific amounts or the specific things you can do within those points of impact, right? That are small and consistent, right? Don't feel overwhelmed. Whenever you feel overwhelmed by something, step back. Step back for a minute. Because the worst thing that you can do to yourself is burn out. Somebody who knows and understands the issues and the systems, and then be burnt out and not be able to create change, not be able to tell your story in a way that can impact those around you. So if you're my recommendation is anytime you're feeling overwhelmed by a change that you make in your life to be more sustainable, step back, right? You generate a water catchment system in your house, but it keeps flooding and it's ruining your hardwood floors. Step back. That's okay. It's okay because that's not sustainable for you at this moment. You're composting, but you have a baby and you can't get it out to the actual compost every day and it's creating a stench in your kitchen. Step back. Give yourself some grace, right? Because that's not your point of impact right now. That's not your point of impact today, right? But keep learning, keep engaging, keep motivating yourself to find whatever your point of impact is today. And those individual actions are not isolated. They really do truly matter, and they really do truly build community, right? And so we've talked about different ways of inserting ourselves into community building. And that really, I really truly believe that that is the core. That is the core solution in when it comes to building a more sustainable world, is that we insert ourselves in positive ways in the community and we build up through small changes, large steps. Now, this is kind of just a funny, very simple diagram, but here is a diagram from a book called Unsettling Settler Colonial Education, which is edited actually by a local professor at Portland State University called Dr. Cornell. And Dr. Cornell Pewardy and his team, they kind of aggregated a series of articles around specifically talking about education, elementary, high school, and college. But I really do believe that this gives us a way of looking at change generally, right? Different types of changes. And what you're looking at is The learner's knowledge, so you being a person of action within the sustainability space, developing knowledge over time, realizing that there's a certain amount of probably increasing energy that needs to be put into making true and meaningful change. And first, the types of change that might be made might feel superficial, right? And they might actually be ingrained in the system to be superficial, like greenwashing and things like that, right? And it is true. But then, as you increase in your knowledge, you'll start to see that there is more deeply rooted work that needs to be done, but also can be done because you've done some of your foundational work, right? And then you can continue to move up into a space where you're actually creating change and activism. And Dr. Piawardi and his team and the folks that they modified this model from, they use a wave-based system because it is true that culture ebbs and flows whenever we're talking about all of these different wicked problems like climate change or colonialism or consumerism or capitalism, so on and so forth, right? So it's like culture ebbs and flows. And being within community around these topics allows for you to kind of catch waves, right? Together in community and bypass. So these red lines where we're bypassing some of that extra energy that it takes to get through some of these waves because we're in a community together and we can actually bypass some of that extra energy. But then also remembering this part too, right? Whenever you want to make meaningful change, there will always be resistance, right? And we can see that even in the smallest spaces, even in the spaces of our own mind, right? When we're trying to learn, when we're trying to move ourselves forward, we find ourselves resisting the effort that needs to be put in, the change that might needs to happen. Maybe in our family, those Thanksgiving or Eid or Christmas dinners where folks are sitting around the table arguing about something or other, right? And we need to kind of have some patience and have some understanding as we hear folks' stories, but also try to move folks forward. And so there will always be some resistance. And the more meaningful your change, likely the more resistance will be faced. But if folks are making that change in community, then we can kind of be more direct in how we're able to address and move forward in those spaces of resistance. Right? And so I just love this model. I went to a talk a couple years ago where Dr. Piuardi presented the model, and I feel like I need to go visit him. Hopefully he has office hours or something and sit back down with this model. But I provide the resource here to the book. And like I said, the framework is specifically around education, but it still provides a model I think that's really useful to us. And so we said those individual changes that we make, they do build community. Meaningful change connects us and reconnects us to land spaces, stories, all of that will eventually help us build community. It takes time, it takes effort, right? It can be tough, as we see here, but it's worth it. It's worth it. And this I just copied from our community lecture, where we talked about creating spaces for diverse community connections, storytelling. So let's just kind of continue to add. Um, Storytelling being a really important part of that. Um, because when we tell our stories, we learn, so yesterday I was in sustainability across curriculum. That's what it was called. Sustainability across curriculum, just a 1 hour training. And one of the activities was storytelling. And it was amazing, just in a group of 3 people, the stories that we told about how climate impacts our world, it just got at the essence of how we see the world differently, the different privileges that we have, the different positionality, and each one of us learned from the other person. And that's actually one of the instructors, actually, I think she was a librarian, said, I didn't think I had a story to tell. But the truth is, each of us exist within a context that is unique and it is important. And when we tell our stories, we're able to share that context. We're able to share some of those skills, and we're able to make a better community overall, right? So storytelling is an important part of that. Mapping and aggregating assets, building relationships, mobilizing resources to share resources, right? We live in a culture where we're told that you need something all the time, right? And you need to buy it on Amazon for 1 day, with 1 day or 2 day shipping. But we don't. We have lots to share, right? And so creating spaces where we can do that. Um, as we create those spaces, we can start to create a shared vision and network and connect with and between communities, right? And so building relationships, establishing networks, and aggregating skills and resources, although it can be tough, although it can take some patience, it does build resilience, right? And so my recommendation with this here is be patient, right? Make small steps and allow folks to come to you, right? And over time, you will see change. Maybe not over a week or a month or a year or a decade, right? But you will eventually see change in your community. Um, Speaking of which, that underlying change, right? There's kind of this so we talk when we talk about in biology evolution, there's two theories of evolution, right? One is this continuous evolution that species kind of evolve over time, they aggregate their different mutations and eventually just kind of speciate into different species. Then there's another theory called evolution by jerks, which is these points of disruption that lead to a lot of change. And the truth is, both of those things are happening simultaneously. It's not either or. It's not either or when you're talking about evolution of species over time, and it's not either or when you're talking about evolution of change over time, right? Folks are slowly building more and more understanding around climate change, slowly building more and more understanding around sustainability, slowly building more and more understanding around the systems of injustice in which we exist consistently, right? And as that understanding aggregates and folks together come together and network and they start to share skills and resources, there are abrupt moments of change. Now, those abrupt moments of change historically oftentimes have come because of some sort of event or disruption, oftentimes negative, right? But we can also be preemptive in our change and realize that there is change happening in the climate. There is change that needs to move us towards a more sustainable world and try to preempt some of those really negative events and disruptions, right? But also being honest that those disruptions oftentimes are what bring people who already have a common understanding and knowledge about what's going on together for action, right? If you look at national and international social change that has happened with different types of, anti-segregation movements and anti-apartheid movements, so on and so forth, nationally and internationally, this is what we see, right? Often starts with an initial grievance and an event, but it is slow work of folks that gather together, build community, and disrupt systems nonviolently, right? So, you know, not taking a trip with a car, right? That's a disruption, right? Little things come together and make a difference. Not choosing to buy a package of water bottles for your kid's soccer event. Instead, just putting a little note in the WhatsApp chat. Okay, everybody, I need you to bring a reusable water bottle, right? So little ways of making change and big ways of making change, right? So we have later on, come back. Oh, we'll see the vampire in a minute. We have folks that have made change via big nonviolent disruptions as well, right? And they have become spokespersons and they have become kind of the face of movements, but they have not worked alone. They have worked in aggregate over time with folks to make change, to bring about change, right? And so Considering that is really essential. One second, let me just get us back to the right slide. Now everybody is wondering about the vampire, right? I gotta show him to you. Okay. Let's just finish this off. Um, and change is a continuous process. We see that each of these changes that have happened over historical time, the anti-slavery movement, civil rights movement, anti-war movement, so on and so forth, they feed into one another. They are not disconnected, right? And so continuing to know what are the issues, what are the changes that need to happen, and how can we motivate ourselves to make those changes? That is a continuous process over historical time. And the accumulated, incremental, small changes eventually have a lasting impact, right? And so thinking about how we can share our stories and we can make change is really important. Um, so how do you be a change maker? Think about what is your gift? What is your unique story? What is your unique skill? What resources do you have in your garage? Most of us have overflowing garages full of resources that can be shared, right? Or many of us, maybe that's privileged if I say most of us, but many of us have resources that can be shared. Um, and how can we sh share them effectively? Okay. Um, I just have in here this Ollie Frost. He just has some really fun songs and videos, satirical videos around climate change. So the vampire conspiracy, the climate fix. So I would welcome you to watch some of those. You'll probably get lost in them and get them stuck in your head like me, but enjoy. Oh, sorry, but they may be too much for now over Zoom. Um, okay. And then I would encourage us not to stop there. Sometimes we kind of stop at what are my skills and how can I share them with folks. I want us to remember that we can develop new skills in these spaces, right? So really, instead of having a fixed mindset about the issues and ourselves, really have a growth mindset, right? And that's going to help us be more hopeful overall. Because if we remember that I, as an individual, can develop skills, I, as an individual, can change, then it makes us hopeful that as a community, as a society, as a global system, we can all develop new skills, develop new systems, and make change, right? And so thinking about what are the needs of our communities, what are the needs of our systems, and how can I go develop those skills? Who can I find as a mentor to help me develop those skills, right? And that's going to reconnect us to community as well. That's going to allow us to support ourselves and others. And so really don't stop at what is my passion or what are my gifts or what are my goals. Take another step and say, how can I develop? What new can I bring to the table? And how can I get there? Right? And then probably you've just heard this community word throughout the whole class over and over, each lecture, every time, because it really truly is the essence of sustainable, resilient systems, communities, and societies, right? So sometimes we come into spaces and we use really large words, climate science, climate change, sustainability, sustainable development, sustainable transportation, um, so on and so forth, right? But that sometimes is exclusionary in and of itself because the essence of resilient communities is just folks maybe sharing a meal. And over that meal, sharing some stories and sharing some skills and sharing some resources, right? And this is something that we historically have known how to do, right? And there are cultures where this still is an essential and important part of who we are. And so shifting those mindsets, right? Capitalism has really put us in a very individualistic space. We don't have to stay there, right? And we do, as humans, know how to move into community if we remember. right? And so really that being really essential. So think about framing when you're talking to people about how they can be more sustainable and how they can be more positive in their impact on uh, local systems, social, environmental, political, so on and so forth. Think about how you frame it. Maybe it's not a lecture on climate science. Maybe it's a potluck, right? Um, and we had said this, but we'll come back to it. Each of us really does truly matter, but not alone, right? And so if we can really frame our motivations, our actions, our kind of context around sustainable change, making a difference, making a more sustainable global system, we really need to really truly believe in ourselves and know that but also know that we don't work alone, right? And so engage in community and see how we can learn from folks past, current, in how we can do that, right? Um, there is this video that was recommended in your book. Again, we won't watch it here, but I put it into the slides as a resource called The Story of Change, which is kind of a good reminder of how change tends to happen and how change is kind of marketed to us oftentimes in a capitalistic system, but we can really remove ourselves from that and think about true community level change instead. Um, but then always just try not to be overwhelmed, right? Anything that overwhelms you in this discussion from this whole class, step back from it. Really, I truly ask for you and recommend to you to step back from it for a minute. Engage in a place, but not step back fully, right? Engage in a place that is a little bit less overwhelming, right? So never stop making change, never stop acting. But if something is really overwhelming you, is something is burning you out, take a step back and then re-engage later. Take a step back and re-engage later. And so make sure that you are able to start, even if it's something very small, like one seed. I don't know. Would they charge you for one seed out of the Winco bulk bin, right? To just like grow in your windowsill? And does that have enough weight to even be a purchase? I'm not sure, but could just be one seed that you grow in your windowsill in your kitchen to remind yourself of natural systems, right? And then you can move on from there, but never stop. That's the thing. Never step back completely. And you really do matter, and within your community, you will make an impact. Each of us will make an impact, and it'll be amazing and it'll be beautiful. And I look forward to seeing all of you like in the world, in years to come, in decades to come, in beautiful spaces and places, right? And I really believe that we will get there. But sometimes the arc of change is long, and that's okay. We have to be patient, right? That's what I have for you in terms of lecture today. Thoughts, questions, stories. We do have a couple of minutes, so I want to give space for folks to just engage. And I'll pause the recording so you feel kind of a little bit more freedom. Yeah. Um, and so I just my suggestion for today, just thumbs up that you can see that because my screen looks a little bit different. Okay, great, sweet. Um, So my suggestion for today is choose your own adventure. And I know that's kind of what we're thinking about with our sustainability models. That's one of the reasons why I love this book so much, the Food Activist Handbook, because it's just like this scattering of all sorts of different types of actions. And this is literally her table of contents is start, educate, build, grow, connect, speak, harvest, feed, cook, engage, or any of those, right? Not necessarily all of those. And just thinking about where we can create space for change, in a way that is meaningful, in a way that's meaningful to us and ours, and can create an impact, but not being overwhelmed. And slowly, like we saw with that diagram from Dr. Piardi's book, slowly being able to ride into more and more change and push against more and more resistance as a collective, as a community, and we will eventually see the fruits of our actions. So I'm really excited to see what folks bring to our discussion next week. Again, I want to remind you that you're welcome to join in person. So JH 205, that's where I'm at during our class meetings, and I welcome you to come. Cascade Campus, JH 205. Feel free to come and join in person or just, join with you and yours in your virtual space as well. Um, I see a chat coming in. Let me just read it real quick. Yes, of course. Absolutely. So if you go into the class list, please, absolutely. I do definitely want us to be in community. Thank you so much, so for spearheading that. Appreciate it. And that is our class for today. So it looks, at least outside of my window and the garden that I'm beside of, it looks beautiful. So maybe just create some space for rest since we were ending a little bit early. And also, I'm here if you have any questions about the sustainability model project or anything in this class beyond. I will continue to move through grading in the next week. And remember that our deadline for submitting any late work is this Sunday. So please do submit anything that's late. I do want to have it and I want you to get your points for it. But do please have it in by Sunday so I have time to grade it. And just shoot me an email once it's in. Okay? Okay, thanks, y'all. And I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
I do
Thank
have a
you.
question.
Oh, yeah.
Thank